Alethea Felton, and I am here to talk to you about the fact that you're not starting over, but you're actually doing this. You see, over the course of 20 years, I held many different roles in various school systems on the East Coast, particularly primarily in the Washington, D.C. area. I started off in my hometown area of Chesapeake, Virginia for a few years. But the roles that I held over the years included English and Spanish teacher, adult education teacher, foreign language department chairperson. Then I became a high school English department chairperson. Then, when I got my principal's certification, I had gotten that a while prior, but I became an instructional coach. I was on instructional leadership teams in Washington, D.C., and also in Maryland. So I became an instructional coach, an eighth grade team leader, and I ended my career in human resources in a role that was very similar to what would be described as a learning and development specialist, but it was a lot more than that because pretty much in that role, the reports that I would write and the observations that I would make would ultimately guide the extremely higher ups to decide whether a teacher kept their position or not. And so most of my career, I was in leadership, and each one of those roles taught me something different about leadership, people, and myself. And then at the same time, I was actually building businesses after my 9 to 5 hours, from catering to health coaching to network marketing to life coaching. And I was building these businesses over the course of those 20 years on weekends, learning how to carry a professional calling and purpose while also creating something of my own. And what I want you to understand is that that season required such a different kind of resilience, and not the kind that asks you to pretend that change is easy or act as though leaving a familiar version of yourself behind does not hurt. Because even with all of those transitions, I was still going through life and its many issues, life and my health, life and grief, life in breakups, life in transitions with careers, just life in general. And the same will go for you no matter how high up you are leading in your career, in your business, or even in your home life. Things will continue to occur. And see, as you are navigating through these, the resiliency comes too, because not everything that you go through is a bad situation. During that time, I earned national board certification. I was doing background vocals for different people who would come through my church, through my praise and worship team. I was also taking trips and traveling the world. So, a lot of the things and the obstacles that I experienced weren't necessarily obstacles. So, everything isn't bad. And even the good things can teach you about resilience. But the type of resilience that I'm talking about is the kind that requires you to keep moving and growing and evolving while parts of your professional identity and your personal identity are being challenged, stretched, and reshaped. See, every professional move felt at first like starting over because it becomes a learning curve. Even in your personal life, when you make milestones in your life, whether it's marriage, moving, having children, you must learn a new system. You must understand a new type of culture, a new way of being. And particularly in leadership, you must learn how to lead in new rooms, new spaces, build new relationships, and grow into a new version of yourself, just as I did. I had to grow into this new version of myself before I fully even understood what that chapter needed or how it would matter in the long run. And what I eventually understood, and listen carefully, is that I was not starting over, I was layering. As I said, one of my businesses in my 20s, I did catering. I went to culinary school for culinary arts, emphasis in baking and pastry. And I absolutely love cooking. I had a Crohn's flare in my early 30s that forced me to pivot from that culinary experience of catering, but I absolutely loved it. And anyone who knows me now knows I love to cook. That is one of my passions. I absolutely love it, and I can cook. I'm telling you, I can make soul food to healthy food to any type of food from different cultures. I love it. And I bring up this food analogy here is because when I would create cakes, I learned how to cook at age 8 and I learned how to bake when I was 11. Bake from scratch when I was 11. And I would make layer cakes, chocolate layer cakes, lemon layer cakes, strawberry cakes. It doesn't matter, but I had to layer the cakes with the icing. So the highest tier cake that I've made has been a 5-layer cake, and I must layer it carefully. Now, what happens if part of that top of that cake crumbles some? You don't start over. You don't throw the whole cake in the trash can. No, what you do is you have to pivot to find a different technique to make sure that those parts are going to be in place correctly. So you do what's called a crumb coat to make sure that that icing sticks perfectly on that cake. And by the time you're finished decorating that cake, you have a masterpiece. And the same goes for you. When you go through these pivots and transitions in your life, you're not starting over, you're layering. See, each role that you experience in your life adds something to you, just as it did me. It creates more perspective, more courage, more discernment, more trust, and it also increases your ability to walk into unfamiliar territory and to still find your footing. This is what resiliency is about. It's not simply bouncing back. And so when you're in a place in life where challenges come or obstacles come, or you are in this period of transition and life has thrown those curveballs and you really need to figure out what to do next, this is what you hold on to, is that no matter where you are in life, in the pivots, you never leave your expertise. That expertise stays with you. It simply develops in a different way. And in fact, it can enhance you far beyond what you could ever imagine. Now, see, when you make these pivots in your life and you figure out your next step, you must understand that you are no longer confined to the limits of a title, a past role, a past job or place of employment, or the past life that you once knew. See, that is the story underneath most reinventions. You are not losing who you are. You are learning how much of you can actually survive the change, but not only survive the change, but thrive through it and still become more fully expressed, more fully aware, and more fully phenomenal on the other side. See, your skills, what you've learned along the way, the people that have poured into you, and the context may shift. That will inevitably change entirely. But the whole purpose is that the authority that you have built through your experiences, through your lived experience, just not lip service, just not textbook knowledge, but through your experience and what you have come to know through the hard decisions, through the personal challenges, through the late nights, through the tears that no one saw, through the weekends, through the stretching and the pulling, through the betrayals that people have no idea about, through doing what was required, even when it cost you something, does not expire. That has no expiration date. That, my friend, is resilience. Not returning to who you were, but becoming the version of yourself that can carry what you have lived through with wisdom, with so much courage and direction. So ask yourself this: what version of myself have I left behind that I am still grieving? And what might it look like to honor it rather than mourn it? Something to think about.